A 10-year-old boy walked out of his front door on a February morning in Great Falls, Montana, and vanished before he ever reached the end of the block. But what makes this case truly terrifying isn't just that he disappeared. It's that the man police would come to suspect had been doing this for decades, and the system had let him walk over and over again. Zachary Xerxes Ramsay was 10 years old, biracial, bright, artistic. His best friend called him one of the best drawers in their class. He had a wide smile and a playful energy that made people light up around him. He lived with his mother, Rachel, in an apartment on the 400 block of North 4th Street in Great Falls, Montana. February 6th, 1996, was a Wednesday, just another school day. At approximately 7:30 in the morning, Zachary pulled on his coat and headed out the door toward Whittier Elementary School, the same walk he'd made dozens of times before. He never arrived. And when the school called home that afternoon, Rachel's world collapsed. Here's where it starts to get unsettling. Witnesses that morning reported seeing Zachary enter an alleyway near his home, and they noticed something else. A large man wearing a blue jacket that looked almost like a police uniform standing next to a dumpster at 7:15 in the morning. He appeared to be taking out trash, but he didn't leave. When Zachary entered that same alley, the man was still there. Police would later believe that man used a stun gun to subdue the boy, and that man had a name that, if the authorities in Great Falls had known what Massachusetts knew, Zachary Ramsay might have been alive that day. A family of 3 confirmed seeing Zachary walking through the alley that morning. Other witnesses placed him standing there, almost as if waiting for someone. And then, at 7:45 in the morning, one witness saw him cross North 6th Street. After that, nothing. No sightings, no phone calls, no trace. Great Falls police launched a search. Days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months. The investigation spiraled, unfocused, pulling in multiple directions, chasing leads that went nowhere. But one detective kept coming back to the same name. A man who had moved to Great Falls in 1991 from Massachusetts. A man who lived just blocks from that alley. A man who had been dressing like a police officer and luring children since before Zachary Ramsay was even born. His name was Nathaniel Barjona. Born David Paul Brown in Worcester, Massachusetts in 1957, Barjona's violence toward children began at age 7 when he lured a 5-year-old girl into his basement and tried to strangle her. By age 12, he was sexually assaulting a 6-year-old neighbor boy. In 1975, still a teenager, he impersonated a police officer and abducted an 8-year-old boy on his way to school. Officers rescued the child, unconscious and near death. In 1977, he convinced 2 boys outside a cinema to get in his car. He drove them to a secluded location, handcuffed them, strangled one so severely he believed the boy was dead, then drove off with the other still locked in the trunk. He was convicted of attempted murder, sentenced to 18 to 20 years. And then the system made a decision that would haunt the state of Montana for generations. While serving his sentence, he legally changed his name to Nathaniel Benjamin Levi Barjona. And in 1991, a Superior Court judge ruled that Massachusetts had not proven he was still dangerous. He was released. 1 month later, he got into a parked car at a post office in Oxford, Massachusetts, and sat on top of a 7-year-old boy. The child's mother heard muffled screams from inside the car. Barjona fled. He was arrested that same day, and the Worcester County District Attorney let him plead to a lesser charge. He avoided prison. He moved to Montana shortly after. Here is where the system's failure becomes almost incomprehensible. When Barjona relocated to Great Falls, Montana, authorities had no idea who he was. He had been on probation in Massachusetts for sex crimes against children, but he was not required to register as a sex offender in his new state. Megan's Law, which would mandate a national sex offender registry, had not yet been signed into law. That wouldn't happen until May 17, 1996, just 3.5 months after Zachary vanished. Bar Jonah walked those Great Falls streets freely. He wore police-style jackets. He was known in the neighborhood, and investigators believe he was standing in that alley, watching, waiting, the morning Zachary never made it to school. In 1999, Bar Jonah was arrested for impersonating a police officer. When detectives searched his home, what they found shook them to the core. Photographs of children cut from magazines, a bone belonging to a young male, coded journals, and when investigators finally deciphered them, the contents described the torture, murder, and consumption of young boys in explicit detail. The documents allegedly referenced Zachary Ramsay by name. There were also recipes, written in Bar Jonah's own hand. Dishes with names too disturbing to repeat on this channel. Neighbors later reported that around the time of Zachary's disappearance in 1996, Bar Jonah had given them unusual meat that didn't taste like the venison he claimed it was. One neighbor described it as notably tender. No body was ever recovered. In 2000, prosecutors charged Bar Jonah with the deliberate homicide and kidnapping of Zachary Ramsay. But in a trial held in Butte, the case collapsed. There was no body. And in a twist that still haunts this case, Zachary's own mother was persuaded by Bar Jonah's defense team to testify that she believed her son was still alive. The jury did not convict. Bar Jonah was, however, convicted of the kidnapping, aggravated assault, and sexual assault of 3 other boys, including charges that he had tortured one child and suspended him from the ceiling of his apartment. On May 23, 2002, he was sentenced to 130 years in Montana State Prison without the possibility of parole. He died behind those walls on April 13, 2008, maintaining his innocence to the end. To this day, not a single charge for the murder of Zachary Ramsay has ever resulted in a conviction. His disappearance remains officially unsolved. His body has never been found. In 2011, 15 years after that February morning, a judge declared Zachary Ramsay legally dead. His mother objected. His best friend still dreams about him. In those dreams, they're still playing together, still kids. But when he wakes up, he's an adult. And Zachary is still 10 years old. Forever. Zachary was funny. He could draw better than anyone in his class. He had dimples and a wide smile. And he deserved to come home. The case of Nathaniel Bar Jonah became a landmark example of what happens when the system chooses to believe a predator is no longer dangerous, and when a child's life becomes the price of that mistake. If this story stayed with you, hit like, subscribe to Crimecast, and drop your theory in the comments. Who do you think is responsible? And could the system have stopped this?